Welcome to INpowered, Mind-Body Inspiration. The mind is the map to wholeness, wellness, health. The heart is the key to genius and inspiration. Join me and my guests as we explore how to release and rewire into who you truly are, unique, whole, and empowered. Please like, share, and subscribe. Spiral up, spiral out. Welcome, everyone. Today we have Dr. Marg Dupee, an optimal performance consultant at Good to Great in Ottawa, Canada. Marg is a certified biofeedback provider and helps athletes and professionals reach optimal performance. Today we're going to talk about breathwork, so simple and yet so powerful and often neglected. Breathwork is a tool for stress relief, optimal performance, and as a tool to tap into our place of inner knowing. Welcome, Dr. Dupee.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me.
So good to have you. So today is going to be very exciting because we're talking about breathwork, and we have it planned beautifully to run through some really beautiful things, like why breathing is so important, what is resonance and how breathing returns us to resonance, what is the optimal breath, and then how people can feed it into their day, some formal and informal ways. And then you're going to introduce some apps that can be very helpful and lead us through how to use them. So take it away.
I think I would just like to start by talking about why breathing is so important. So breathing is probably the most important tool I use with clients, and it's partly because our breath is always with it and with us, and we don't need any other external devices. And being aware of our breathing and learning to regulate it can help to heal our body and mind and help us to perform optimally. And the way it can do that is by awareness on our breathing can help us manage our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, our physical body, the sensations we have in them. It can also help us learn to relax, to recover, to refill your tank, and even to focus better. So breathing is pretty powerful. And so it's a great topic to be bringing more to the light.
Right. And I love that you say there's nothing extra required. We have to breathe. It's with us at all times.
Yes, and that's probably one of the reasons that it's one of your best tools to really hone and develop. And we'll do that over the session. We'll talk about different ways that you can do that. So I think it's really important not only to know about things, but to be able to do it. So that's the difference. Knowing about things doesn't move the needle, but being able to do it is what can help you improve, change things, and everything like that. So it's that experiential part that hopefully we'll have lots of time to focus on. So we'll give you some breathing exercises at the end and give you some information about how it might be best to do that. But we'll start with today we will start more about talking about how breathing affects your nervous system. So that's the big kicker for me, is that the way you breathe affects many components of your nervous system. And there was a quote that I loved by an older psychologist that says, the trick is to make the nervous system your ally instead of your enemy. So it can kind of dysregulate, your breathing can, and it can affect your nervous system to dysregulate. But by bringing awareness to the breathing, having it regulated, can also help us to optimally regulate our nervous system. So that's really, really important. And specifically, the part of the nervous system that breathing affects is something called your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So the two of them work in conjunction with each other. And to understand the nervous system, we can talk about your central nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord, and then your peripheral nervous system, which is all the nerves that run off the spinal cord into all the parts of your body, your muscles, your organs. And a part of that is the autonomic nervous system. And so that's your sympathetic, your fight and flight response, and your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and recover response. So this works in a dynamic way. You want to activate to get a job done. So your sympathetic nervous system comes on. And then as soon as that's done, you want the parasympathetic to alternate back to be the dominant one so that you can rest and recover so you're ready to go again. And so this is something when we're born, our nervous system does very easily and almost seamlessly. Sympathetic, parasympathetic, sympathetic, parasympathetic. But what happens as we age is we turn on the sympathetic system. And because we have what we call a thinking brain, humans do, we can think and activate that sympathetic system and keep it going. And the autonomic system that works below your thinking brain, the autonomic system would normally switch off, but we can keep it on by our thoughts. So that's why the thoughts can affect the nervous system, and it can affect your level of stress. And so we want to be able to rebalance your nervous system, and we want that on and off, the gas pedal and the brake pedal, to be working really, really well for you. And that's part of what breathing can do. It can help you just to get that stress response off and to get back into kind of rest and recover.
Because a lot of us stay in the stress response today. It's our place of get things done, and we don't know how to turn it off to recover.
And so, in order our immune system is very much compromised if we have the sympathetic system on all the time, because you're draining your immune system. So we want to cycle and get the parasympathetic dominant, because the immune system kind of recharges and rebuilds. But so does every other organ and part of your body with the parasympathetic dominant. So that's really, really important. And there is a breath rate at which we can all breathe, an individual breath rate for each of us, that helps to activate and strengthen the parasympathetic nervous system to get it to regulate and come back on, just kind of seamlessly, in a very healthy way, basically. And as I mentioned a little bit, as we age, our ability to turn the sympathetic off and the parasympathetic on and the parasympathetic off becomes kind of compromised, and we don't do it, we don't practice it, we stay in that sympathetic state, we stay activated, we stay busy and focused, and then as soon as you strengthen the sympathetic, then the parasympathetic just doesn't react. It just sits on the bench. I call it like a basketball game where you have the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic, and the parasympathetic nervous system went to the bench, right? So it's sitting on the bench. It's there to be used, but we're not using it. So we need to really learn, how do we actually get the parasympathetic nervous system back in the game? And breathing, probably one of the best ways to do that.
Oh, I love that. Sitting on the bench, not using it. So true. So, and what is resonance, Margie?
So what resonance is, we hear that's a fairly common word now we're hearing. But resonance can also be kind of called coherence, when things come into synchronization. So when things kind of work together, right? And every person has what they call a cardiovascular resonant frequency, or everybody has a resonant frequency. So and what that means as far as for us today in breathing is that there's a breathing rate or a pace of breathing that in which your breathing and heart rate come into synchronization. So they become coherent. They start moving in the same direction at the same time. So at a certain breathing rate, as you inhale, your heart rate will increase. And as you exhale, your heart rate will decrease. And that's just innate in our systems. And so if we had you hooked up, I also do biofeedback. So I have people hooked up looking at their heart rate and their breathing rate. And when we get them breathing at the resonant frequency, we see them come right into synchronization, and we see them both happening, increasing at the same time and decreasing. But the other thing that happens when you breathe at your resonant frequency is that you turn on the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's why you want to know, what's my resonant frequency, and be practicing it, because you're bringing the parasympathetic nervous system back into the game, and you're strengthening, all of your systems and rebuilding. And so we want to kind of be aware what is resonant frequency and what is our resonant frequency, and then use it as often as you can to kind of bring yourself back to what we call your center. You're putting all the blood going to all parts of the brain so you can think, because when we're stressed, blood goes to the emotional part of the brain, but not the thinking part of the brain. So how do we get the blood back to the thinking part of the brain? How do we use all of our knowledge? And that's by the thinking part of the brain is linked, the prefrontal cortex is linked to the parasympathetic nervous system. So you take the parasympathetic nervous system out of the game, you take your prefrontal cortex often if you're quite stressed. So that's why you can't think under stress. And so don't worry about what the problem is and solving that problem. We want to get the parasympathetic nervous system and get the blood back to the thinking brain, so then we could do that. So it's always about that internal state, paying attention to your internal state, making sure it's where it should be, and then deal with the external world.
So helpful if you're going for an exam or into a stressful situation, just to be aware of these things so that we can think properly. So what is the optimal breath?
So when I talk about optimal breathing, there's different components of it. And where we start is I talk about belly breathing. So letting your breathing happen in your belly. So let your belly rise and fall as you inhale and exhale. So that's probably just bring your awareness. Is it in your chest? Notice whether you're breathing. As you inhale, your belly expands, and as you exhale, your belly falls. So that's the first thing. Even just put your hand on your belly and just do that. And so we want to shift our breathing from, if it is in our chest, so under stress, the sympathetic nervous system is activated, our breathing goes to our chest, we get short, fast breaths. So you could be running and you get short, fast breaths, but you could be standing there and have short, fast breaths because you're mentally stressed. So really bringing awareness to, where am I breathing? Am I breathing just into my chest, or am I breathing into my belly? And shift your awareness to the belly. And in order to do that, you have to slow your breathing down. And so people talk about deep breathing. I never talk about deep breathing. I talk about slow breathing, because with deep breathing, we could get into hyperventilating and things like that. But just slowing the breathing down is all that's required. So belly breathing, slow in, slow out. And the other factor is that if it's possible, the idea of, can you breathe through your nose? So that's something everyone can give a try. If you can't, that's fine. And it's something that just bringing awareness to inhaling and exhaling through the nose, closing the mouth. Sometimes if you kind of recline back or lay down, it becomes easier to breathe in and out in the belly and in and out through the nose. So that's where I start if you find it challenging in any sort of way. And there's research becoming more prevalent now about why would nose breathing even be that important, or what's the difference, or what difference does it make? And so one of the lines of research talks about breathing through our mouth activates our sympathetic system, and breathing through the nose activates our parasympathetic system. And so if we want to kind of like quiet ourselves down, then breathing through the nose does that. If we want to activate, say you need to be performing, you need to be speaking or something, maybe, or you need to, you're doing a run or something, maybe you want to activate, maybe you want to do a little bit of mouth breathing or chest breathing to kind of get the system up. So there's times, everything is good in certain times, but when you want to fall asleep, we don't want to be chest breathing, kind of thing. So know that there's good in everything, but what's the purpose here? Are we trying to deactivate, or are we trying to activate? And so learning to breathe through your nose. Also, another line of research talks about the nose helps to filter the air coming in, and it basically cleans the air, heats it up, it moistens it, and so the lungs can extract more oxygen from each breath. So we can breathe more efficiently through the nose if we're in a relaxed state, kind of thing. And so this whole idea about breathing and the importance of it, lately it's a pretty big deal, right? They use it in meditation. They use it just for paced breathing exercises. But this is not new. This is not new news. And when you look, there's in many societies, you see the importance of breathing. In older societies, you read it read about it. And one is with Native American Indians. When you read about certain tribes there, they basically believe that the breath inhaled through the mouth saps the body of strength and causes stress. And while breathing through the nose keeps the body strong and prevents disease. And so they even, as part of their practice, is that when after mothers would feed the babies, they would then just press the lips closed to encourage them to go back to breathing through their nose. And even when babies are sleeping, they train them to breathe through the nose. They are standing over them, they're sleeping, and they open their mouth. They just gently pinch back. So it's something you can bring your awareness to at times when you can. Maybe when you're just sitting in the back seat of a car, or before you fall asleep, just gently close the mouth and just do the breathing through the nose, and just see if that's something that you can use as a tool to activate that parasympathetic system to calm you down. And it also gives awareness. There's a big body of research talking about focusing even just on closing the mouth, but relaxing the tongue can quiet down the nervous system, can quiet down your busy brain, your fast thoughts. So there's many benefits kind of from just bringing awareness to your breath, bringing awareness to doing it through the nose, quieting down your mouth, relaxing the tongue. All of those things can help initiate that parasympathetic dominance. And I think that's what we really want to do in life right now. And the stress literature also follows that very closely, where previously stress literature always talked about the sympathetic nervous system and fight and flight, and how do we turn that sympathetic nervous system off. But the more recent literature is now focusing on not what is stressing us, but focusing on how can we make ourselves feel safe? How can we bring ourselves back into parasympathetic dominance? And that's where the literature is. So let's not worry about the sympathetic. Let's just get the parasympathetic on, and the sympathetic will take care of itself. And so I think that's interesting, that the stress literature. So all the different bodies of literature are kind of following in parallel, but in different ways based on what they study and everything like that. So we know you can get the parasympathetic nervous system activated by bringing your awareness to your breath and breathing at your resonant frequency. So let's do it.
Yeah. Right? We pull away from it so easily, thinking that we have to force things and be in this very active mode, and we forget these simple things. And I love what you're talking about, nostril breathing. I always do it nostril, but I didn't know why it was so important. So thank you so much for that.
And I mean, I know in yoga as well, there's a real focus on breathing. So that this is lots of things you'll do. There's a focus on it, and there's a reason why there's a focus on it, because it is very, very beneficial to our health, to our ability to think, focus. So we do want to have an understanding, but also have a daily practice.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways that we can include it in our day? I know you talk about formal versus informal ways that we can include it.
Yes. And so we definitely want to always be looking at the formal versus informal ways that we can do things. So anything you learn new, you want to kind of practice it systematically and have it part of your day, but then you also want to pull it in when needed under stressful situations and things like that. And just to recover, so you have more energy to get back out there to do whatever it is you're doing. And so generally in breathing practices, or we say have some kind of guidelines, but I think what you want to do is you want to start with about 5 minutes breathing a day, if you can. If you don't do any breathing at all, a great start is to breathe for about 5 minutes, pay a formal breathing practice for 5 minutes, and eventually you can extend it up to 20 minutes. So usually 20 minutes is a good place to aim. To kind of do that much breathing is quite beneficial. Therapeutically, there's a number of breathing programs you can do, and they would do 20 minutes twice a day. So if you had some sort of disorder, then it would be one of the things you could be doing is doing this 20 minutes twice a day. But that's pretty regimented, and that's not for the average healthy person necessarily. I mean, you could, but it isn't necessary. But if you could get yourself up to 20 minutes, say within 6 months or something, start out with 5 minutes every month, bump it up. That would be a great way to start to do that, basically. And then the informal practices, I basically, so 5 minutes a day. We're going to talk in a couple minutes exactly what rate of breathing might be a good one to start, or a range for you. And we'll talk about that. And what that is for 5 minutes, that would be 30 breaths. And we'll talk about that later, how you would figure that out. So that's not a big deal. Sometimes I tell people just count it on your fingers. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, and you do your hands 3 times. So that's 30 breaths. That's 5 minutes. So we don't need a big timer. We don't need a stopwatch. We can just do 30 breaths, use our fingers, count, and do that. So that's realistically what we're saying. Can you do 30 breaths? Have 5 minutes towards your health, to improve your health, basically. And then the informal, so to switch to the informal, I wanted to mention that because I want to talk to the informal. The informal is maybe 1 to 10 breaths. So at any point of time, whenever you can, could you do 1 breath? Could you do, and that might be, you might see that someone playing basketball, just before they go on the court, they're standing there ready to go on, and they do a slow inhale and a slow exhale, and then on they go. So they're just refocusing their mind and their body. So it could be 1 breath, it could be 3 breaths. That's another one I use. I use 6 breaths, 10 breaths. And so basically between 1 and 10 breaths, you can use it where you're standing in a bank line and you be aware of your breathing, and you just say, I wonder how many breaths this is, and maybe you'll do 6 breaths or 10 breaths, or maybe you do 20 breaths. You say, oh, that's a 20 breath line, but you're doing some recovery work while you're waiting in line. So there's many ways you can really use your breath. And I'll just give you a list of some other ones that people have used. Brushing your teeth, and maybe just make a game of it to see how many breaths is it while I'm brushing my teeth. And you've got to have your mouth kind of open and whatever. So maybe you can be breathing through your nose, and then 2 minutes. So to give an example, 2 minutes of brushing your teeth, which is sometimes what dentists are saying at times, probably more, probably just me saying 2 minutes, would be 12 breaths. And so, at least 12 breaths. And so you would get your work in your teeth brushed and your nervous system cleaned, your nervous system being your breathing work, and your teeth cleaned all in the same time, so that you're really being efficient. So lots of times we could be doing things like that. Or in the shower, when you're sitting on the toilet, anything, there's on a bus, when you're watching TV. This one I work with athletes often. And this one, sometimes I say to them, when you're listening to other people talk, if it isn't that you have to be laser focused to hear what they're saying and taking notes and writing a test, say you're just listening to see what they're saying, you can keep some awareness on your breath, maybe 10, 20% of awareness just on your belly breathing. And you can still hear what the person's saying. And so you can be doing it while you're doing other things. I think we often think that if we have this external focus, we can't pay attention to our internal environment. And that's not the case. You got lots of resources there. And so bring awareness to your internal environment. And first of all, to your breath. That's one of the best places to bring it. And just how am I doing? And then also seeing what's happening in your external environment. And so that kind of nice awareness of the breath, as often as you can, doing 1 or 5 breaths, can really be beneficial over the day. So that's your informal practice. And you can think of either activities which are regular activities like brushing your teeth, but people also use informal activities which are random. So every time I get a text, I take a slow inhale and a slow exhale before I look to see what the text says. So we might get 100 or 1,000 in a day, depending on how many texts you get. So that would really be some nice work for de-stressing the nervous system, putting it in there. There can be other ways. Someone uses when their dog barks, they do a breath. When they walk through a doorway, I mean, you can be creative, and I'm sure everyone can think of a million different ways that you could do a breath or 2, a breath or 3 in your day. And just know that that's helping to kind of reset and de-stress the nervous system, bringing awareness to your breath.
I love using it to reframe the day. So say somebody's late, to use that time to breathe, or if something's taking too long, to use that time to breathe, like you say, waiting in the bank when there's 20 people in front of you, you can see it as a positive thing because now you can do your breath work in that time, so it really helps that way.
Right, because it might be that the external environment isn't cooperating and being as quick as you want, but that doesn't mean that you can't be taking that time to like nurture yourself and do some breath awareness work and do some breathing. And it's like, this is a gift from the universe. It's not like a problem or a detriment, right? The time you're given.
Yeah, you
So I
suddenly
think that's great.
Yeah, you see it so differently. And the optimal breath is 4 in, 6 out, right?
Right. So on average, people breathe the resonant frequency. So lots of testing has been done, and it comes to about 6 breaths a minute is the average person. You might not be the average person. You might be 7 feet tall and have huge lungs, so you might be able to breathe a little slower. And someone who's really small might breathe a little bit faster, might breathe 7 breaths a minute, or the other one breathe 5. But on average, 80 to 90% of people breathe around 6 breaths a minute is the resonant frequency. That's when we test them, between 5.5 and 6.5 breaths a minute. But let's just say 6 breaths a minute. And we test them and we see that's where their heart rate and their breathing come into synchronization. That's where their heart rate varies. Their heart rate variability is maximal. And that's what we want. They're in their resonant state, basically. And so that's a good place for people to start. And like I said, if you want to be tested, there is a possibility to be tested and find out, but you'll find out it's just a hair slower or a hair faster. And it's between 5 and 7. So 6 is where we're going to say. And so 6 breaths a minute is 4 seconds breathing in and 6 seconds breathing out. And the reason we want you to have your exhale longer than your inhale is because your inhale activates your sympathetic system. Remember, that's your fight and flight, that's your activation system. And your exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system. So that's your rest and recovery. So if we're just trying to recover, deactivate, then we want that exhale to be just a little bit longer than the inhale. And you can just count, you can look at a clock, you can just count 4 counts up and 6 counts out. You can have a pause after the inhale, pause after the exhale. You can vary it, whatever's most comfortable for you. But that's a good place to start. And that would be 10 seconds of breath is 6 breaths a minute. So if you want to breathe for a minute, do 6 breaths at that pace. So it's really, really quite easy. So I use 6 breaths lots of times because I think just do a minute of breathing here. And then I just do 6 slow breaths, 6 belly breaths, basically. And then that's a minute of breathing.
So 4 in, 6 out would be basically 10 seconds.
Right.
Right. And then 10 times 6 is a minute.
Exactly.
Just math.
Yes. And you know what? And it's once we kind of, if you see it ever on a clock that has a second hand, and you slowly for 4 seconds breathe in, and then for the 6 seconds breathe out, and then it's at 10, and then do the same thing, and it gets to 20, and then to 30, and to 40, and to 50. So that's 6 breaths. And so it becomes, once you visually see it and do it, it's locked into your brain. So it is that you got to, the numbers sound complicated, but they're not complicated, especially if you see a clock and just see the 10 seconds tick by, basically.
Yeah.
And so you've done 6 breaths.
Yeah. And you can start to do it just by feel after you've practiced enough, right?
Exactly. So you will know, at first you want to maybe, watch the clock or count, but after that, you're going to get a feeling for what is your inhale and what is your exhale. And then you just do it intuitively and by feel. Exactly. It doesn't take very long.
Whenever
but
you yeah.
But we do have, go ahead.
Yeah, we do have an app though that's amazing because
we do have an app that can help everyone to establish that. And the name of the app, and there's many breathing apps, but this is just one that I find is a very easy kind of starter app. And it's called Breathe Easy. So breathe, BREATHE, easy, EASY. And so if you have your phone, You can grab it and you can go to the App Store. We'll just give you a minute, and then you can look for the Breathe Easy app. And you'll know it's the right app if you see a blue circle on a white background. So that's what you're looking for, a blue circle on a white background. And then we'll just give you a second to see if you can find it. And if not, maybe after the we're finished up, you could go find it and you can re-listen to the podcast and get the information. But we're going to just walk through it. So anybody who can.
Yeah, and I'm going to put the link in the description so that people can find it super easy.
Great. Okay, so we'll have the link for them in the description as well. So I'm going to actually, Jayne, I'm going to have you just try to, I know you've just downloaded it, and then I'm going to have you, I'm just going to walk you through the basic stuff we want to do once we have that app open on our phone.
Yeah, so I have it, and there's the blue circle right in the center. So tell me how to make it my own, how to personalize it.
Okay. So probably the best place to start is on the bottom right. There's a little I for information. So I touch that, and you should see words come on the screen.
Yeah.
And you'll see in the middle of the circle is tap to breathe. So if we were going to do breathing, you just tap the screen, obviously.
Yeah, so in the middle, there's breathe E out. So that means tap to breathe there.
Yes, that's exactly that. So this, and I think what we'll go to next is maybe just give that a try. So just tap it, and you'll see the circle get small. Yeah. And then you'll see the circle get big.
Right. So you breathe in as the circle gets big or comes toward you. Is that correct?
Yes. And then you breathe out as it goes away. But let's go and set the timing first. So we'll touch the screen again, stop the app. Yeah. And now we're going to go to the bottom left side where it says timing, and just touch the little clock there.
Yeah.
And at the top, you'll see inhale time, and you want to put 4 seconds on the clock there. So you're going to just drag the little dot over until it's 4 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. I've got inhale time, 4 seconds.
Your number?
Yep.
And then underneath, it says exhale timing. And you drag the line until you get to a 6. And you see a little number come up in a little cartoon is 6. So you have 4 inhale, 6 exhale. And so that's how where we're going to leave it, and then you're going to save it. And so
and it says inhale, paused, exhale, paused. We leave that at 0.
Leave it at 0 to start. Okay. If you find later you like to pause after the inhale or after the exhale, go back and give yourself a count or 2 there. Never more than a count.
Okay.
And so to keep at the very beginning, let's just keep it basic. We're just going to do 4 seconds inhale, 6 seconds exhale, and worry about the pauses once you become a little bit more refined breather. So we're pressing save, go back to the app and back to the circle.
Perfect.
Okay, so now when we tap to breathe this time, we see that it actually goes away from us. And so that's an exhale. So usually things always start with an exhale when you have breathing apps. And then as it comes towards you is the inhale. And you'll notice it's just going to shift from the exhale to the inhale.
Yeah, and it's lovely because you now have the visual with your breath, which helps keep you focused.
Exactly. And as it comes towards you, it gets bigger, like the air, your ribs get bigger, your belly gets bigger. And as you exhale, your belly gets smaller, your ribs get smaller. So it kind of like is paralleling, filling with air, getting bigger, taking the air out, going smaller. So it kind of, and you'll also see that obviously the inhale is 4 seconds, the exhale 6 seconds, and that can help you just learn to breathe at a resonant frequency of around 6 breaths a minute. And so that's one where you can just do a little bit of breathing with that. You could also set a timer for 5 minutes. Say before you start, set the timer for 5 minutes and then put this app on and just breathe it till the timer goes off, and that's 5 minutes. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, is that on the left or you?
No, there's no timer. You'd have to set the timer on a clock or a stopwatch or something, but it's not part of the app. But what I'm saying, if you want to set it for 5 minutes, you could set a timer and then breathe there. And again, going back to what we talked about earlier, breathing for about 5 minutes would be 30 breaths. So if you want to count your breaths, then you would just do 30 of them. That would be 5 minutes. So you could do, this is what we call using visual attention. So looking at the app and seeing it get bigger and get smaller. It's your visual attention, you're breathing with visual attention. And so you can do that.
Yeah, it really helps. And I can also make it a certain color and a certain shape. So there's squares, hearts.
Exactly. If you go back to the tap it to stop, at the very top, you have some shapes. You have a heart and a square and a triangle and a circle. And then you can make the background white or black. And you can also change the color of the square. It can be blue and green and yellow and orange and red. So you can have your favorite color, your favorite shape, and you can do your breathing.
Lovely. Beautiful. And so easy to use at any time. And you mentioned at some point that you can also set like a vibration so that if you're in a stressful situation, that can remind you to breathe, but you don't look at anything.
Right. And my understanding is this is only for the Android app, not the iPhone. So anyone with an Android can use, in the bottom, in the middle, is a little icon that is a vibrate icon. And so you can turn that on. And so you don't need to be looking at the circle. You can be just holding your phone and it will vibrate when you're supposed to start to inhale and then vibrate when you're supposed to start to exhale. And I did that just last week when I was at the dentist. And I just had my phone in my hand. And while I was there, I did my breathing the whole time I was in the dentist chair. And I had it set for 4 breaths in, 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. And I could feel the vibration in my hand. And so I would just an inhale to an exhale. So that can be done. Sometimes I think I'm going to use it a little bit more. I haven't really used it a lot. I used it at the dentist, but in difficult conversations, that might be able to be a very useful tool for me to just because my whole awareness won't be on the person I'm talking to in the difficult conversation, but there'll be a little bit of awareness on my breathing because I feel the vibration. So sometimes it's that we don't want 100% of our awareness on the external world. We want to keep some internal to see how we're doing and to help us regulate, because it does help us regulate if we breathe at that rate.
Right. And it keeps us in touch with our own inner awareness and our intuition and that place of knowing that can really help in a difficult conversation or experience.
Exactly. It's I call with the athletes, I call it their quiet center. And they stay connected to their quiet center, that part of them deep within themselves that is quiet no matter what someone's saying to you, no matter what's going on in the external environment. And it's always there. And it's really cultivating our ability to stay connected to it regardless of what the external world is bringing us, is what can help us to kind of perform our best and use our intuition and use our knowledge. And so definitely awareness on your breathing can help you to really cultivate a strong link. And it's like anything, it's like a muscle, if you develop and really work that muscle and that ability to stay connected to your quiet center, then it's there for you in every moment of every day. If we don't strengthen it, like a bicep, if you don't strengthen your bicep muscles, or better analogy is your quad muscle, so the muscle in the front of your thigh, that helps you to you straighten your knee so you can stay standing rather than the knee buckling. And if that was really, really weak, then the knee buckles. And so if we don't have strong muscle, strong quad, we can't stand. If we don't have a strong muscle connected to our quiet center, we can't self-regulate. We can't calm ourselves down. We can't keep non-reactive in difficult situations. So we really want to strengthen that muscle. And breathing is a really, really great tool and a tool that we have with us in every moment of every day. So really just developing the ability to do it, doing our informal practice, doing our formal practice every day. We make it important and then we develop the skill. And then we are not as reactive as we used to be. And people are wondering what's going on, and it's just that we brought our awareness to our breathing and we've been able to stay connected to our quiet center, to our best self.
Exactly. So important. And you have another app that you're going to introduce us, and anyone can download this for their phone, and it's more of a auditory.
Yes, so this one is auditory attention. So it's going to be hearing. So we're going to hear it. It's going to be sound. And so you can have visual, you can pay attention to a visual thing, which is often good at the beginning, having a visual cue to tell you when to inhale and when to exhale. But that takes a fair bit of our attention to a visual cue, where an auditory cue takes less attention. So once we get better at it, we can just have it playing on our phone, in our earphones, and we can be kind of using it while we're doing something else, when you're walking or at a conference or something, and you want to just kind of do a little bit of breathing, but you still want to see what's going on. So we're going to play the music. I call it paced breathing music. And we're going to put the link Jayne will put the link up as well. And then you can just go there and it'll bring you to Dropbox, and you can copy and download that. And it's about 6 minutes, 40 seconds of breathing, and it's 40 breaths. And we're just going to practice it here. Again, it's 6 breaths per minute. So you're 4 counts inhale, 6 counts exhale. But it's an auditory attention it takes to do it. And so let's go with it.
Okay, here we go.
So you're inhaling, and then you're exhaling.
So that's inhale now.
Yes. And then exhale. So inhaling. So you inhale for 4 counts and you exhale for 6 counts. And so that's just, when you listen to it, you'll kind of get a feel for what's the 4 counts up, what's the 4 counts down. So that's something that you can use. You can put it on your phone and you can practice with it.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And that's something that you've developed?
Yes. So that's something I put together when I was working with some athletes to help them to practice their breathing. And so at the beginning, I asked them to practice both the visual and also the auditory breathing exercises. And then in the end, they have a preference over which one do they prefer to do, which one do they remember to do, which one is easiest for them to do. So it's good to give you a couple different tools, and then you decide which one fits into my day. And lots of them like the auditory one. At the beginning, they like the visual because it really helps them to stay on task. Because sometimes you can have the auditory one on and you forget about it. And so it doesn't kind of demand your attention the same way the visual one does. But it is also that once you get better at it, you can do it before you go to sleep at night. You can do it first thing in the morning. You can just do it when you're riding on a bus or in the backseat of a car or something. You can be doing it when someone's talking to you, but you just have it on low there, just to remind you to pay attention to your breathing, to your internal state, to stay connected to your best self, your quiet center.
Yeah, and it's so calming. It is calming.
It is, and so that pace, that 6 breaths a minute, we see, like I was mentioning earlier in the talk, we see when people breathe around that pace, that we see not only does their breathing and their heart rate come into synchronization, but their muscle tension decreases, their skin conductance, which is their sweating response, it decreases, their hand temperature and their foot temperature, which increases. So when we're stressed, our hands and feet sometimes get cold. As soon as we breathe at that rate, we start to initiate not just the breathing and heart rate, but all the other systems of the body are given the message, chill out, it's all good, there's no threat. And we all know what that is. That means the parasympathetic nervous system has been activated. So breathing at 6 breaths a minute, 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out, helps activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And so that's a really, really strong way to try to get that sympathetic, the stress response turned off. And maybe it doesn't happen in the first breath or the first 6 breaths, but you keep doing it for 30 or 40 breaths, and you'll start to notice the body will surrender and go into that relaxation response. And there's been times when but I made it for the athletes this 6-minute one I call 40 breaths, but then I also have it 3 times, so it's 120 breaths, and that's maybe they use when they want to go to sleep. They put it on, and sometimes it takes more than 6 minutes, right? And they say 20 minutes, 10 minutes usually get your body calmed right down, and then between 10 and 20 minutes really goes into a nice deep recovery. So that's why we want to work to that 20 minute, is that we can really get some deep recovery. Maybe you don't fall asleep, but you can do your breathing for 20 minutes just laying on the bed or laying on a lawn chair, and you can really get some of the same benefits as when you sleep, where the body goes into a nice recovery state, but you're awake. And that's what meditation is, and that is trying to put your body into the state where it's recovering.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask if you're extremely stressed, something has happened, you're going in for an exam, and you need to bring yourself back so you can think and perform from your place of inner knowing. You're saying it takes about 10 minutes?
Well, it depends how stressed you are.
Yeah.
Some people can in a minute, 6 breaths, and it depends how stressed you are, but it also depends how strong that muscle is. And so that's why when I was working with Olympic athletes, if they want this to work when they're at the Olympics, they have to be doing it in low stress times, in high stress times, at other competitions, every single day as their formal practice, out on the boat or on the ski hill, informal practices every day. And then when they get to competition in a highly stressful environment, they're going to remember to do it, and it's going to have an effect. But it's not something, an example I have is I was climbing Kilimanjaro many years ago, and I was training lots of people at the time. And some of the people we were climbing with, when we were trying to summit, the night we were trying to summit to the top, they were saying, Marg, can you teach me that breathing exercise? And I thought to myself, there isn't a hope you're going to be able to do it, or that you'll remember, or that can even help. You need to practice that. It's just like you want to, and so like, I'll teach it to you, but that's not how it works. How it works is, if you want to be good at putting a basketball in the basket, you better be practicing. If you want to be good at calming yourself down and decreasing your stress levels, you better be practicing every day. It depends what you want to be good at. What do we want to be good at? And so and then you can be really good at it. You can do it in a few breaths. You might need 10 minutes. You might just need a minute or 2, maybe 3. And you can probably bring yourself. I had an example of an athlete who was a canoe kayak athlete, and she was on the start line at the Olympics. I think it was semifinals or something. And she didn't have her number on her boat. And so she got the referee called her over, boat number 3, come on over. I don't want to talk to you. And she's like, what's going on? And then they say, you don't have your number on your boat. So she could have been disqualified right there. That's it. They didn't have to let her do it. But they said, you have 1 minute, get the number on your boat and get back to the start line. And she thought to herself, I have 1 minute. I do this all the time with Marg. And 1 minute in the lab, I breathe and I bring myself right back to where I need to be. I have 1 minute. I can do it. So it's like she knew she could do it because we practiced it 100 times. And so that's what you want to do. You want to practice bringing your nervous system down and calming yourself down and quieting your thoughts and quieting your body, so that when it's tough and when you really need to do it, and you don't know when that is, sometimes that comes out of the blue. So you just want to have the tools. You want to have that muscle strong to help you, so you can self-regulate, so you can keep yourself calm even though everyone else is losing it, because then you can really make good decisions for yourself. And that's why you want to do the informal and the formal practices. And I obviously hounded the athletes on this, but it was probably the strongest tool that I had in my toolbox when I was working with them.
Right. Yeah. And so she could do what she needed to do, get that number on, and bring herself back to her center and go into the race. And that you have to practice to be able to do
exactly. So she just took the boat over, the coach put the number on, and all she had to do is get herself to the start line. But the whole time she couldn't be freaking out and thinking, oh my goodness, this is a disaster. I've lost the race and whatever. She just had to be focusing on her breathing. 4 in, 6 out, 4 in, 6 out. I know that's going to bring me to where I need to be to start this race. Right? So sometimes things are happening and you should be going 4 in, 6 out, 4 in, 6 out. That's what you need to be doing to get yourself to the place where you're going to perform your best.
Yeah, because these things happen in life. And so many times we just give into it and it's sabotaged us and there's no way we can do it now. But there is. We can get through anything.
We think we don't have influence, and we have a lot more influence over our physical and our mental state than we think we do. But we can't have that unless we actually train it. Right? It's like anything. You know, you want to be good at something, you want to be good at just being your best self, then you need to train bringing yourself to your center every day. And so then on the day when something's thrown at you out of the blue, you got this. I got this. 4 in, 6 out.
Just a small speed wobble. And then you have that laser focus and that connection to your intuition, and you can be a master of your own creation.
Exactly, because your physiology, I mean, you know, the mind-body literature, which is psychophysiology, which is the area that I'm in, how connected your body and your mind are is incredible. And we have influence over both, but, you know, some of the strongest tools we have is to get our physiology in the place we want it to be. So to calm ourselves down. Breathing is number one on that. Muscle tension, all of these things. We have the ability to kind of quiet our body if we practice. And then what happens is it brings the mind with it. So we have the idea of the psychophysiological principle. If you quiet the body, the mind comes with it. You quiet the mind, the body goes with it. So it's connected, because the message in the body, in your internal environment, is there a threat? You're always scanning, is there a threat? And if the body is telling the mind, there's no threat, we're chilling down here, then the mind will say, okay, we just quiet down. I can take a break, not needed to be on high alert. And so that's what you want to learn. You want to learn to develop that skill, to give the mind and the body the message that there is no threat and that you've got this, and it's all going to be okay. And we can do that. And one of the ways is through our breathing, obviously. Our breathing can help us to do that. And then there's many other ways as well, many other tools. It isn't like the only tool, but it's a good one. You want to have it. You want to have it in your arsenal.
Right. And then if you want to achieve great things in life, it's like the exercise that you need to do in order to create resonance and create. It's like the person that wants to be a great dancer. They have to do many pliés.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. There's no free lunch.
Unfortunately, not on planet Earth.
Not on the nervous system. So the nervous system is saying, you know, you keep yourself in this high elevated state all the time, and then this is where you're going to live. But you learn to bring yourself back to this calm, focused state, then that's where we're going to live. And that's really the place where you can make your best decisions.
Yeah.
And you can be your best.
That very stressed state, eventually the body responds to that, and lots of things can break down. So it's
sure with disease and yes. So that's another reason why you want to kind of take care of your internal environment, because if you don't, then lots of things, you know, it wears out, right? So unless you're always kind of rebuilding and just letting it recover. I mean, really, I think one of the most important things that we did after I did research with some of the Olympic athletes, we also did the interviews after, and we asked them, so what did you learn? You know, what do you think was the most important thing? And I bet you 3/4 of them, of 100 of them, said, I learned how to recover. Like, I learned the recovery part. So our research was on both the focus and focus recovery dynamic. So your ability to focus, obviously get the job done, and your ability to recover, and really trying to hone the skills of both your focus and recovery skills for optimal performance. And, you know, they were pretty good at focusing. They got a little bit better, but they said they got a lot better at recovering and learning, what does that even mean? And how do I do it? And what is it for me? Because all of us manifest stress in different ways. So some people, it's muscle, so they have really tight muscle, really tight jaw, tight shoulders. And other people, their hands get cold, their feet get cold. So it's more of a vascular thing. And other people, their heart rate races. And so other people, they sweat. And so you need to understand, how do I work? You know, under stress, what's the first thing to go offline? What's the first thing that's gonna, go off the tracks? And for me, it's my hands get cold. So I'm like I'm a temperature responder. Lots of the athletes are muscle responders, so their muscles get tight, and that's not a good thing when you're doing athletics. Your muscles, so they need to notice as soon as the muscles become even a little bit tight, and they got to do things to bring it back to that nice state where they can perform well. And that's the same with everybody. I mean, we're all elite athletes as far as I'm concerned. And we need to notice, where's my breathing? Am I breathing in my chest and short and fast? Are my hands cold? And all those things. And all of those stress response, the different types of stress responses I talked about, all can be helped by doing your resonant frequency breathing, bringing your awareness back to your belly breathing. 4 in, 6 out, nice, quiet all those systems down. So that's one of the ways, as well as having an awareness on relaxing the jaw, or relaxing the shoulders, or letting my hands and shoulders relax to get the blood back to the hands. So that you can do a few things, but first thing is to give that breathing back where you want it to be, your optimal state to recover. And that's what the athletes just said. It was like an incredible tool that they're surprised they didn't know about earlier. But I think more and more people know about breathing now. And there's, there may be slightly different ways, and it doesn't really matter. Make sure it just works for you. If that doesn't exactly work for you, find something that does.
Yeah, so important. Thank you so much, Dr. Dupee, for sharing this incredible knowledge you have with us today. And I just hope everyone uses it and becomes their best self.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I always love talking about my favorite topic. So thanks for the opportunity.
You're so welcome. Loved having you. And for everyone out there, don't forget, don't give away your power to anyone else. Be the master of your own creation. Spiral up, spiral out.